The mystery of how Stephen Clark vanished from a public restroom. On the 28th of December in 1992, 23-year-old Stephen Clark disappeared under circumstances so unusual that his case continues to haunt investigators, his family, and the community of Saltburn in North Yorkshire. What should have been an ordinary winter walk with his mother Doris ended in a mystery that has remained unsolved for more than 3 decades. Stephen was last seen entering a public restroom near Saltburn's seafront promenade. By the time his mother emerged from the adjoining women's facility only minutes later, her son had vanished without a trace. Stephen Charles Clark was born on the 30th of August in 1969 in Colchester, Essex, to Charles and Doris Clark, both former police officers. His early childhood was marked by tragedy when, at only 2 years old, he was struck by a truck after wandering from the family home. The accident left him in a coma for a month and resulted in permanent injuries, including a damaged arm and a noticeable limp. Despite these difficulties, Stephen grew into a tall, intelligent, and sociable young man with passions for music, swimming, bowling, and computers. Much of Stephen's youth was spent in South Africa, where the family lived before returning to England in 1990. Settling in Saltburn-by-the-Sea, Stephen attended the Rathbone Society, an organisation dedicated to helping disabled people find employment. Though he faced difficulties due to his disability, Stephen applied himself fully and was recognised with an Apprentice of the Year award, highlighting his determination and skill. On the day of his disappearance, Stephen's father, Charles, had gone to watch Middlesbrough play Crystal Palace, leaving Doris and Stephen to spend the afternoon together. They chose to take a long walk along the beach in Saltburn. As they began heading home, Stephen mentioned that he needed to use the restroom, and they stopped at a public facility near the seafront pier. Doris entered the women's restroom while Stephen entered the men's. That was the last confirmed sighting of him. When Doris came out minutes later, Stephen was gone. Believing he may have already started walking home, she followed the route back but never saw him. When she returned to their residence, Stephen was not there. She later explained that she had not checked inside the men's restroom, stating that Stephen, being 23, would have been embarrassed by such an intrusion. When Charles returned from the football match later that day, Doris explained what had happened. Together, they searched for their son, but found no trace of him. At 6 o'clock that evening, they reported Stephen missing to the police. At the time of his disappearance, Stephen was described as 6 feet 3 inches tall, with a medium build, blue eyes, and dark brown hair. He was wearing a maroon crew-neck jumper, a navy parka with a fur hood, denim jeans, and grey trainers. Doris also recalled that just before Stephen went into the restroom, 2 men accompanied by a young woman had entered behind him. Strangely, these individuals were never identified, nor did they ever come forward. The search yielded no immediate results, and investigators faced a baffling puzzle. Security cameras in the area provided no answers, and no physical evidence pointed to what had happened in those few crucial minutes between Stephen entering the restroom and Doris exiting the adjacent one. Over the following weeks, sightings of Stephen were reported, but none could be verified. A witness familiar with him claimed to have seen him near his home around 3:45 in the afternoon on the day he vanished. Another woman insisted she had seen him 2 days later, leaving the beach with an older man wearing glasses. However, due to the distance from which she allegedly observed them, police questioned the reliability of her account. On the 14th of January in 1993, a family friend named Stan Kamesh claimed to have spoken to Stephen in Redcar, less than 10 miles from Saltburn. This initially gave the family hope, but years later, Stan admitted that the man he encountered was not Stephen, but someone who merely looked like him. Why he originally claimed otherwise remains unexplained. Despite extensive efforts, the case quickly grew cold. The absence of evidence meant that theories about Stephen's disappearance relied on speculation. Some suggested he may have walked away intentionally, though this was inconsistent with his life, family ties, and the fact that his personal items were left at home. Others suspected foul play, particularly given the unidentified men and child who entered the restroom after him. Stephen's disappearance is especially haunting because of the setting. A public restroom, in broad daylight, with people nearby, hardly seems the place where someone could vanish without being seen or heard. Yet, more than 30 years later, That is exactly what appears to have happened. The mystery of Stephen Clark remains a painful reminder of how swiftly someone can disappear, leaving behind only questions. His family has endured decades of uncertainty, with no answers to explain what occurred that winter afternoon. Whether Stephen left the restroom and encountered misfortune, or whether something more sinister happened inside those walls, remains unknown. What is clear is that a young man with his whole life ahead of him stepped into a public restroom in Saltburn and was never seen again.